Good afternoon. I think everyone has joined us at this point. Thank you so much. I want to welcome you to today's press conference celebrating Brown University's winner of the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics, Dr. Peter W. Howitt, Professor Emeritus of Economics. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We are joined today by President Christina H. Paxson, Brown University's 19th president and Professor of Economics and Public Policy. She will speak soon after I do, and then we'll turn things over to our Provost, Provost Francis J. Doyle III, Professor of Engineering and the 14th Provost of Brown. Then we'll hear from Corrine Rosen, Chair of Brown's Department of Economics. And then, of course, we will hear from our Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Howitt, Professor of Economics Emeritus. I'm just going to share just a few words about how this will proceed today. After the remarks, I will ask reporters who are dialed into this video conference to use the hand raise function. Please use your hand raise function. You should see that at the bottom of your screen or in your toolbar. And then I will see that hand raise. I will call on you by name. And at that point, we will unmute your microphone so that you can ask your question. We will leave your mic open in case you have a follow-up question of Dr. Howitt. And then, of course, we will close that mic and then we will go on to the next person who has a question. So with that, we will go ahead and proceed. I will turn things over to President Paxson.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Cass said, my name is Christina Paxson. I'm president of Brown University. And I want to add my thanks to all of you for joining this virtual press conference in honor of Professor Peter Howitt, who's been awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics, jointly with economists Philippe Aghion and Joel Mokyr. And we are so proud that Professor Howitt's work has earned this incredible honor. If not for the holiday today, and travel that goes along with this, we would have been in a crowded auditorium filled with jubilant members of the Brown University community, all there to congratulate Peter for his extraordinary accomplishments. And I hope that the enthusiasm and the pride we're all feeling today is evident even via Zoom. This moment underscores the importance of research and the role it plays in shaping a rapidly changing society. Research is at the heart of so many innovations transforming our world, and it's wonderful to see Professor Howitt and the other prize winners recognized for their remarkable contributions. Now, personally, I'm especially excited by this prize because as an economist myself, I've actually studied the research on which it's based. Starting in the mid-1980s and extending well beyond, the economics profession experienced a renaissance in research on economic growth. And important advances during this period represented major shifts from the foundational theories of the late 50s and early 1960s. In 1992, Peter Howitt and his co-author, Philippe Aghion, published a groundbreaking paper in Econometrica called A Model of Growth Through Creative Destruction. This is a gem of a paper. It presents a theory of economic growth that explores how through technological advances and market forces, new modes of production come into being and old modes of production become obsolete. And it shows how technological change creates winners and losers. Plus, it has implications that are more important than ever today. For example, for antitrust policy and for the important role of investments in research in driving increases in standards of living over time. In this paper and others that follow, these are the basis for the Nobel Prize. But I want to note that over the course of Peter's long and productive career, he's made important contributions to other areas, most notably in monetary policy, inflation, and employment. We are fortunate that such an influential economist has spent a large portion of his career at Brown University. And I look forward to a celebration and a toast when we can be together in person. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Paxson. Now we'll turn remarks from Provost Doyle.
Thank you, Cass. As you heard earlier, I'm the current provost here at Brown and professor of engineering and neuroscience. And I'm truly delighted to join President Paxson in expressing how proud and honored we are by the privilege of hosting one of this year's Nobel Prize winners on our faculty. I also joined President Paxson in underscoring the importance of research and the work of faculty like Peter Howitt in exemplifying the research mission of universities. The awarding of these Memorial Nobel Prizes in Economics by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences comes at a time when there are national conversations about the value of research at universities. And Peter and his collaborator, Philippe Aghion, exemplify the extraordinary talent that advances knowledge and informs our understanding of concepts that shape our world. Peter is the living example of a world-class economist who worked for years as an educator scholar at the center of the university's commitment to student-centered learning. At the same time, he engaged in collaborative research, deep analysis, and exploration of issues that are at the heart of national, indeed international questions of economic policy. Peter and the other Nobel winners this year play an important role in advancing their fields and engaging in the deep questions that lead to new ways of thinking about 21st century issues. Indeed, at this very moment, there are so many questions about the disruptive nature of artificial intelligence, which will surely benefit from the application of Peter's good work. Even as he studied technology and innovation, his own work reflects innovation at the heart of what so many researchers do every day. And he did that at Brown while teaching the next generation of scholars, leaders, and problem solvers. We celebrate Peter for serving as a leading example of an intellectually curious mind whose work is now making an impact beyond Brown. Thank you, Cass.
Thank you so much, Provost Doyle. And now I will turn to the chair of the Department of Economics, Corrine Rosen.
Thank you. As the chair of the economics department, I would like to convey how delighted our faculty are that Peter Howitt received this great honor. Peter joined our department in 2000 and retired in 2013. I joined Brown only 2 years later in 2015, so I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Peter well. But I've spent all morning talking with many of my longer-serving colleagues about Peter, both inside and outside of his field, and hearing what an incredible scholar, intellectual giant, and simply wonderful person Peter is. He's admired and respected by his colleagues. Everyone I spoke to mentioned what a kind, supportive, and wise person he is. At Brown, Peter continued his deep contributions to the study of economic growth. As my colleagues in that field will tell you, the work his Nobel Prize cited was a milestone achievement. His model with Nobel co-laureate Philippe Aghion opened important new avenues studying a critical question. How do the institutions we use in markets impact the incentives to innovate? And how does this shape the path of economic growth? Peter spent his years at Brown continuing to work on this agenda, understanding the implications and synthesizing his insights on innovation. He was absolutely prolific at Brown, publishing over 40 articles here, as well as a wonderful 2009 book called The Economics of Growth. Peter was also deeply committed to graduate education at Brown. Even after his retirement, he continued to teach in the macroeconomic sequence. We are honored to have had Peter as part of our department and proud of his long-lasting contributions to our department, to economic growth, and to macroeconomics more broadly. Peter, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Corrine. And now I'm sure what everyone has been waiting for, to hear directly from Brown University's Nobel Prize winner in economics, Peter Howitt. Peter.
Well, thank you, everyone, for all your kind words and congratulations. It's hard to express how I feel right now. I'm just thrilled and still somewhat in shock. Of course, I'm happy for achieving this recognition. I'm happy for our profession that we normally seek our praise and our congratulations and so on from our colleagues, our professional colleagues, and to have the world at large award us something like this is really amazing. I'm very grateful to Brown for having provided a wonderful atmosphere, wonderful setting for me to continue the research that I enjoyed doing so much with Philippe Aghion. We started working in 1987 when I was on a sabbatical at MIT, and he was in his first year as an assistant professor there, and the work continued for the next 35 years. Much of it while he was at Harvard and I was at Brown, so we were able to get together on a weekly basis for many years, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I had wonderful colleagues who were also working on economic growth. that meant a lot to me. The ideas that we were awarded the prize for are, in a way, old ideas. The theory of creative destruction was first formulated by the Austrian-American economist Joseph Schumpeter more than 75 years ago. And this is a simple idea that that in order to understand technological progress, you have to understand that it takes place through waves of innovation that bring great benefits to mankind, but also generate tremendous losses to many people whose livelihood depends upon technologies and capital that are rendered obsolete by these new technologies. And this has created a conflict at the heart of economic growth. And this has been realized by a lot of people, but it wasn't possible to really deal with them systematically in a mathematically coherent model until Philippe and I found a way to do this. And I think it's very important. I'm thrilled that the world at large is beginning to acknowledge that the importance of that. The conflict at the heart of economic growth has to be resolved some way or another. Every new technology that has a great impact creates great losses as well. Those have to be, people have to be compensated. People have to be negotiated with in order to resolve that conflict in a way that allows the technologies to proceed. The central thing that we focus on is that new technologies are brought in by disruptive outsiders who are interested in shaking up the status quo. But if they succeed in doing that, they become the status quo, and they are very resistant to people that want to do that in turn to them. And somehow institutions have to be developed that allows this transition of technologies to take place and not to be blocked by the people who used to be innovators but are now quite reactionary. And this requires a lot of attention by antitrust policy, by competition policy, by international trade policy. And it's particularly important, and this is something that Joel Mokyr has focused on somewhat more than we have, but it's particularly important to recognize that producing the technological advances that result in economic growth requires cooperation between university research, business research and development, and government support. The three of them have to work together, and maintaining that cooperative atmosphere is so important. The biggest advances in technological progress that have spurred US economic growth, first in agriculture, later in the second industrial revolution, then in information technology, have involved this cooperation between governments who've often led the research and universities and businesses. And I hope that will continue in the future, although I see dark clouds ahead. But thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Howitt. So I get the privilege of asking the first question. Again, I'm Cass Hyatt, Senior Vice President for Communications here at Brown. I think that most people on this call probably want to hear about the moment, right? The moment when you learned that you won a Nobel Prize. Where were you? Were you asleep? Were you awake? Can you just kind of let us know what did that feel like, and how exactly did that happen?
Well, I was asleep in the morning. I had actually turned my phone off the night before because it had run out of juice, and I thought, well, I'll just leave it off. I honestly, we had no champagne in the refrigerator. We were not anticipating this in any way. My wife's phone was on Do Not Disturb, but somehow or other, a call from Sweden managed to make the phone ring several times. and I thought, well, maybe we better answer this call. And it was not from the Swedish Academy. It was from a reporter
Ah,
in Sweden. And by that time, and at first I thought this is some kind of a hoax, but after I asked her a few questions, it became clear that this was for real. I was really in shock, quite confused. It was only about, perhaps 3/4 of an hour later that the Swedish Academy managed to get through to me. They'd already had their press conference and made their announcement. Um, and I'm, of course, still recovering from the shock and confusion.
that's wonderful. I will have to figure out how calls from Sweden make it through those blockers when
Yes, I
domestic
don't
calls
know.
won't. So I will turn next actually to the person identified as Jay Sharon. Pardon me if I'm mispronouncing that. You may unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You pronounced it perfectly. It's Jeremy Sharon from CTV National News in Canada. Hoping perhaps that you can talk to us a little bit about your Canadian connection and perhaps any impact Canada may have had on your work through the years.
Yes, I'd be happy to. When I began this work with Philippe, as I said before, I was on sabbatical. I was on sabbatical from what was then called the University of Western Ontario, now just Western University in London, Ontario, where I worked for 24 years. And Western was also a great place to do research. It was a very lively economics department, a young economics department full of people interested in different ideas and reading each other's papers and commenting on them and organizing conferences and meetings. And we continued to work together there. I took my next sabbatical in France to be closer to Philippe, and stayed there for a couple of years, and then finally was persuaded to come and work in the U.S., and where I've been ever since. 4 years later, I came to Brown, but working in Canada was where I really cut my teeth as an economist. The atmosphere at Western University was the one that really taught me how to be a productive scholar, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Thank you so much. And if I may, as a follow-up, I think you talked about dark clouds ahead. I think you talked about international trade policy. I think there's some pretty evident real-world examples of that right now. In a world where the global economy and global trade is changing, where Donald Trump is, increasing U.S. protectionism through tariffs. Is there perhaps a lesson to learn for countries like Canada when it comes to your theory, embracing some of the principles of your theory to try and evolve in that kind of changing landscape?
Yes, I think that the biggest problems right now for Canada are political in nature, and how to deal with the very different environment. I think it is important to do what you can to maintain openness of economic trade. The main impact that international trade has on economic growth, I believe, I mean, there are various impacts, but when it gets to be an extreme change in the environment, the biggest impact is through what we call the scale effect, the size of market. What happens if you have a huge trade war and tariffs go up is that markets get restricted. People trade just within one country because the cost of crossing international barriers becomes too much. And that means that for someone undertaking R&D expenditures, hoping to invent something that could be sold. That reduces the size of the market available to everyone. That reduces the incentive to innovate, because the big payoff to a lot of research and development, certainly for industrial research, is the prospect of earning profits from selling a new product. And the more you restrict international trade, the more you blunt that incentive. And I think that has a major effect on things. So I think it's very important for countries to do what they can, not to join into a trade war, but to try to find ways of perhaps diverting it. If one partner becomes restrictive, go out of your way to find other trading partners, to keep that market open for potential innovators. That's, I think, the biggest lesson that our research has for a country like Canada.
Thank you, Professor Howitt. I'm going to turn now to Chien Desjardins. Again, pardon any mispronunciation.
This is Chien Desjardins with CBC News from Toronto. When it comes to the idea of creative destruction, why should this research matter specifically to Canadians right now?
Well, as I say, I think it is important to maintain open trade. It's also important not to be too protective of existing industry leaders who at one time were disruptive innovators and who can, through various different channels, help to block new innovations. If the incentive to innovate has been dampened by changes in the international environment, I think it's important to try to offset that through encouraging innovation in other directions, and in particular, trying to support competition and to support academic research.
Thank you. The next question is from Darian Woods.
Congratulations, Peter Howitt, for your win.
Thank you.
I'm Darian Woods from the Indicator podcast from Planet Money from NPR. I want to ask you about the role for unions in a world of creative destruction.
Well, unions have an important role to play in all of this because, of course, workers are at risk of being displaced by new technologies. They need to be taken care of. They need ways to counter the power that the business has over them, and we need to find ways of channeling innovations so that they don't just replace workers, but make workers more productive. And people are often think that creative destruction is inevitable, that new technologies will certainly destroy jobs. And this is particularly obvious with something like AI that seems to be able to do the work of almost anybody. But the fact is that throughout history, there have been all sorts of great general purpose technologies that have come about, which people have predicted are going to generate mass unemployment. And that's sort of the end of the ability of anyone to earn a living through their work. But this hasn't happened. The mass unemployment is always predicted for new technologies, and typically it doesn't happen. And why? Because the technologies make workers more productive. Maybe not in the jobs they used to do, but in some jobs. There's some individuals who will never recover from technological change. But on the whole, if you think of labor in general, the value of labor in general, it tends to go up with economic growth, and the share of wages in national income tends on the whole to remain fairly constant. But it's not automatic, and I think that in some cases, technological change has to be directed in a way that maximizes the productivity effect of work instead of maximizing the substitution effect of new technologies for labor.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Song-Yoon Kim.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Sang-Yoon Kim, a correspondent with E-Daily, a leading economic newspaper based in Seoul, South Korea. South Korea has achieved remarkable economic growth through a strong manufacturing sector and large corporations. But many now worry that this very structure is limiting new innovation and competition. From your theory of creative destruction, what do you think countries like Korea can do to stay dynamic and keep new innovation alive for the future? And I heard that Professor Jung Kyung-ha, now serving as a chief economic advisor to the South Korean president, was one of your students. Could you give him advice that what kind of policy environment do you think is most important to prevent established industries from blocking new innovators?
Well, I think that being able to block existing companies from opposing, prevent them from blocking new innovations is it's a difficult political question that I don't have any particular expertise for. I think that having firm antitrust policies is extremely important. I think the United States has been at risk, I think, of allowing too much unregulated monopoly power in various sectors in recent years, and that's had a somewhat stifling effect on innovation and economic growth, despite the tremendous advances that we have seen. And so a strong antitrust policy, I think, is very important. This is something that our empirical research has supported. It was thought when Schumpeter first wrote about creative destruction, to him it was an argument in favor of allowing strong monopoly power on the grounds that it's the prospect of becoming a monopolist and earning all of this profit from your monopoly position that provides the incentive for creating innovations. And what we showed through our model is that there's another effect that counteracts this. It's what we call the escape competition effect, that the more competitive a market is, the bigger the incentive the existing market leaders have for continuing to innovate, to remain ahead of the competition. If you have industries in which the leaders can find it easier to suppress competition than to escape competition, that's what they'll do. And so a firm monopoly power is required to maintain that incentive to innovate, and that I think should be the focus of any country wanting to continue to innovate even after they become as successful as South Korea has.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn now to Justin Lahart.
Hi, it's Justin Lahart at the Wall Street Journal. Can you hear me?
Yes, Justin, go ahead.
Okay, good. Yeah, so first, congratulations. Two questions, and the first one is really, was there a moment for you and Philippe where you realized, oh my gosh, we figured it out. We have we know how to sort of in a formalized way, say these things that Schumpeter said years and years and years ago.
Philippe and I complement each other. We have very different personalities. He is extremely dynamic and energetic and enthusiastic. I sometimes tell people that every vehicle needs an accelerator and brakes, and he's the accelerator. I've been the brakes in our collaboration. Right from our first research, even 5 years before our first paper was published, we had actually produced our first draft of it. It took us 5 years to get it published. It just did not meet with a good reception at the. And it was actually the first journal that we submitted it to, Econometrica, which is one of the top economics journals. But they took about 4 years to make up their mind that they wanted to publish it. But right from the beginning, from our very first research, I remember back in 1987, Philippe saying, "We're going to get a Nobel Prize for this." I said, "Sure. And he has continued to be very enthusiastic about this. He's saying, our time will come, our time will come. Okay, all right. But now it's come, so amazing.
That's amazing.
Right. And then just my follow-up question, I mean, I guess, this really is sort of, with AI happening. I mean, just in this, this sort of AI moment, I mean, how do you see sort of the interplay between incumbents and new entrants working out? I mean, obviously it seems like we have a lot of incumbents that are really sort of plowing money into this space. How do you think that works out? Or how would you sort of frame what's happening now?
Well, obviously we are in a big shakeout period right now where no one knows who's going to be the leader in this business of artificial intelligence. And we don't know what the creative destruction effects are going to be. It's obviously a fantastic personality, technology that has the possibility as amazing possibilities. And it also obviously has an amazing potential for destroying other jobs, for replacing highly skilled labor. And all I can say is that this is a conflict that's going to have to be regulated. Private incentives in an unregulated market are not really going to resolve this conflict in a way that's best for society. And we don't know what's going to come from it. We have massive investments taking place. We're in the middle of an investment boom that is, of similar nature to the telecom boom of the 1990s. Many other technology booms that have ended in collapse, but nevertheless brought with it major new technologies. And it's very hard to know exactly what to say about how this should be regulated, but it's going to produce a tremendous amount of conflict. A lot of people are going to be losing their jobs. In order for us to fully realize that potential, we can't generate so many losers that they end up blocking the technology, voting out of power anybody that allows this to happen. And it's a big moment in human history. It may take many years before we realize what's actually happening. But I think it's like qualitatively like many other general purpose technologies that have come about. Electricity, steam power, the original IT revolution back in the 20th century. And all of these, I think, showed that there is a potential for us to enhance labor with these technologies and not just to replace it. How we're going to do it this time, I wish I had specific answers, but I don't.
Thank you. We're going to take just a few more questions. Next we'll take from Leah Crawley, then we'll move to Sun Young Park.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sun Young, go ahead. Sorry for the technical difficulty.
Okay. Congratulations on your Nobel Prize, first of all. I'm Sinyoung Park from Korea Economic Daily, and I have two questions. First one is Korea is facing one of the fastest aging populations in the world, and how do demographic shift interact with the forces of creative destruction? And do aging societies inherently face limits to innovation and entrepreneurship? And second one is, how should export-oriented countries like Korea respond to the current US tariff policy? I'd appreciate it if you could share your thoughts, even in general terms.
Well, in general terms, I mean, that's all I can do, really. I would say is first, as for the demographic process that you're undergoing, it's true that innovations tend to come more easily to the younger parts of the population, and you know, having an aging population is, in general, not favorable to the innovation process. But a lot of ideas that are implemented in the country don't necessarily come from within that country, and you have to be open to ideas coming from elsewhere. And I think that the academic profession, for example, provides a lot of channels through which ideas can flow across borders, and you have to be open to those, so that the flow of new ideas and innovations isn't restricted by the demographics of your own country. As for being export oriented, I think that is always an important channel. International trade is an important channel itself of technology transfer. The more you trade with the rest of the world, the more you learn about technologies that are in use and have proven to be successful in the rest of the world. And if one of your trading partners becomes less willing to trade, you just have to undergo more efforts to find other trading partners. And there are lots of them around the world, besides the ones that are pulling back.
Thank you for that. And Leah, are we able to hear from Leah Crawley?
Can you hear me?
We can, Leah. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for coming back to me. I really appreciate it. My name is Leah Crowley. I'm with WPRI 12 here in Rhode Island. So I'm going to be asking a much more local question. Could you please just share more about the role Brown University played in your research, and why study a topic with clearly such far-reaching ideas from here in the smallest state?
Well, the nice thing about academic research is it doesn't really much matter where you are, as long as the profession is open, and the economic profession has been very open. I say it doesn't matter where you are. It does matter very much in what institutional environment you're situated, and Brown provided just a spectacularly helpful atmosphere for me. I learned a lot from my colleagues. Several of my colleagues at Brown were among the leaders in economic growth theory, still are among the leaders, and I learned a lot from interactions with them. You learn as much from your students and colleagues very often as you do from your own research, and sharing ideas in an open environment like Brown's was extremely valuable for all of my research. The university provided me with a lot of opportunities and research funds that I made liberal use of. And the students at Brown were extremely stimulating. I learned a lot from the graduate students that I had over the years, several of whom have gone on to have really good academic careers of their own, focusing on economic growth. I was very privileged to have that experience.
Thank you so much for that question, Leah. Of course, we at Brown really appreciate it. Our final question is from Brian Clark right here at Brown. Brian Clark is Vice President and he oversees news operations and also some of our campus communications. Brian?
Professor Howitt, congratulations. It's wonderful to hear from you. I wanted to ask if we could ask you to think back to when you originally decided to pursue economics. Presumably, it was not with the goal from the start of winning the Nobel Prize. So maybe tell us a little bit about your motivations for getting into the field and now thinking back, kind of, how your career is matched up against those expectations.
Wow. Well, I decided to become an economist at a fairly early age. I was actually in high school, and I was working part-time and on weekends for a man in Guelph, Ontario, who was importing wool from around the world and selling it to textile mills in Ontario and Quebec. And a very nice man who he probably didn't need my services that well, but that much, but took me under his wing and was a real mentor to me. And I would see his little teletype machine at work, bringing in these prices of wool, different types of wool from around the world. And I would ask him, what's going on with these prices? Why do they keep going up and down and so on? He started to explain something about supply and demand to me, and that sounded really interesting. And he's the one who told me that if you really want to understand this, you have to go study economics. And I was fascinated by watching this very small but highly successful business at work. Typically, when I went to work, I was one of 3 or 4 people in the office, and that was it. And so I went off to McGill University to do. You couldn't just study economics there. You had to take it in combination with something else. So I took a degree in an honors degree in economics and political science. Went on to do a master's in it. I got even more enamored of economics in my undergraduate years, but turned my interest more towards macroeconomics. And most of my research over the years has been in macroeconomics. But I never turned back from that original question that I made of my boss back when I was about 18 years old. And why are these prices going up and down? And I just been curious ever since, and I've been very privileged to have spent my life doing what I really love to do.
Thank you so much, Professor Howitt. So that was our final question. We want to congratulate you again. We want to thank you. We know your colleagues thank you for your contributions to economics. Your students, your Brown students, generations of Brown students, thank you for what you have taught them over the years. You are truly a great mind, and we thank you so much. And we continue to celebrate you. And we hope you do find that champagne, even though you had none in your freezer or your refrigerator.
My wife came back from the store, so she's got some.
So we'll raise a glass to you from a distance. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Congratulations again, and enjoy the rest of this wonderful day.
Yes, thank you, and thank you to all of you. Appreciate that.
Take care, everyone.